Hi everyone, welcome to second round of mock interviewing. I'm here with Karthik. We're going to do an MBA style interview right now. The last one was MIM. So the MBA would generally be a lot more similar, but it would have more questions around, work experience and personal impact that people have made after college. So a lot of these questions would center around that. But before jumping in, Karthik, I was just talking to you earlier, and you mentioned you're applying to a bunch of schools. So Tuck is one of them. So I'm going to pretend to be a Tuck alumni interviewer, right? I'm very familiar with the school. I applied to that school and got in, which was helpful. But I also have a ton of friends who went to that school, so fairly well versed with the culture. So
Awesome.
what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to play the role of the interviewer. So pretend that I went to talk, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you questions, and you're going to answer them, and then I'm going to give you feedback, move to the next question, answer feedback, so on and so forth, right? I think we'll be able to get maybe 4 or 5 questions in, and I
Mhm.
think in your real interview you should expect similar number of questions. I think people tend to overestimate how many questions they're going to get, but I think the big thing here is to be able to talk about your impact quantitatively and maybe give me more context, because your interviewer can may or may not have any background to what you want to do. So just make sure that
Yep.
you're giving me that appropriate context so that I can understand at least on a high level what you're talking about. Okay. All right.
Got it.
So with that said, Karthik, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll go from there.
Thanks for asking, Souvik. I grew up in Delhi, and I decided to go and study physics at Delhi University in the footsteps of my parents, because they went to Delhi University as well, and I really enjoyed hearing about the culture there. But a year in, I've kind of realized that physics was not my forte. I wasn't the best with theoretical topics, and I got involved with a social entrepreneurship club on campus, and did some interesting things there. Happy to talk about that in case you're interested. At the end of college, I realized that I needed more exposure. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, so I applied to this one-year fellowship called the Young India Fellowship. It's a one-year-long liberal arts program where you study a bunch of subjects with very interesting people. And when I was there, I realized that the biggest learning that I've derived from different phases of my life have been from people. And I got involved with the alumni community very deeply there. And I still continue to serve on Ashoka's alumni board. And happy to talk about that experience also in case you're interested. Post the Young India Fellowship, I started working with Deloitte Consulting, did a couple of projects in the strategy space, in the M&A space. The industries that I typically looked at were in the healthcare and the life sciences sector, but I also did some interesting work in the digital area. Uh, in about 2018, India declared very ambitious clean energy targets. I always enjoyed the space. I always wanted to try it out, and I decided to give it a shot and got lucky. I got accepted into India's largest clean energy company, and for the last 2 years, I've been working in the new business team of India's largest clean energy company. What that means is that I help my firm enter new markets and invest in new products. And most of my work involves talking with players outside in different parts of the country, in different countries, in new geographies, and also working with new tech in the industry. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I also enjoy high altitude mountaineering, so we can always chat about that in case you're interested.
Cool. Awesome. So how did you feel about that? How did you feel about that introduction?
I felt we were able to cover most of the major points within my resume. Uh, so to give you a
Okay.
broad overview of who I am, but
Okay.
because I tried to cover too much, I wasn't able to go deep in any of these.
Yeah. No, I actually think your answer was great. I felt the introduce yourself question is more about, I mean, look, I have your resume, right? So I know the stuff that you did. So it's a lot less to do with what you did in the last couple of years, but more about why you did them. And I think you did a good job in tying those up. Like you told me why you went to college, and some of the frustration with maybe physics or some of the like non-practical elements, which is why you chose to go to Ashoka. That was awesome. And then I think what I did not get was your move from Ashoka to Deloitte, and
Mhm.
maybe from Deloitte to clean energy and clean tech. I think that was a little bit unclear. So I think what I would recommend doing in this case is from Ashoka, if you could, tie it up into just general problem solving and the
Mhm.
fact that, okay, so you have some quantitative background and you have sort of seen how social impact plays around. But
Yep.
one of the ways you sort of tied in the Deloitte element is you enjoyed working with people, right? But there are so many ways to work with people, and consulting is one of them. I would say the big element of consulting is to leverage some of your analytical and quantitative background, and then as a result, apply it in big problem solving. So I would maybe tie it up with that. You can also talk about, like consulting is like this exposure to multiple industries because you didn't know
Mhm.
what you want to do. And I think that's fine. I think to come out and say that, look, I mean, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I wanted to do everything. And one of the ways for me to do that was to join consulting, where I would get early exposure to multiple industries, and that would then set me on the path that I really wanted to go to. And then you can actually tie it in. And the thing that I liked the most was clean energy, and I think that's what I wanted to zero in on. And then you can mention the India's ambitious goals. It was a perfect time for me to join this forum, which is the largest clean tech. So I think that flows a little bit better. But overall, really good stuff. I enjoyed learning more about you. Let's move
Thank
on to
you.
the next question. So Karthik, that was great. I understand some of the things that you did, but can you tell me a little bit more about why MBA and especially why talk?
Sounds good. Thanks for asking. So the one thing that I've kind of realized over the last 2 years working with India's largest clean tech firm is that climate change and clean energy in particular is an infrastructure problem, and it's a problem of how much we can build. And what I've realized is that over the next 3 to 4 decades, humanity will have to build a lot of infrastructure. We'll have to decarbonize our power sector. We'll have to decarbonize transport. So the problem is immense, and I would say there are only a handful of companies right now, and they are doing great work, but there is potential for an insane amount of companies to be founded. And I want to play a part in this story, and I want to start my own clean energy firm long term. So with that, kind of long term goal, what I've realized is that the impact I can have in my current job is limited. What I've been able to do is work on small, pilot scale infrastructure projects so far. But to jump from small scale projects to large scale projects, there's a bit of a, for the lack of a better word, a glass ceiling within my firm and within the industry per se, with regard to they really value experience, they really value an MBA. And I feel this is the time for me to, make that jump and go and get that business degree, and also gain some valuable hard business skills that I'll need long term setting up my own clean energy firm. Coming to the topic of Tuck, so there are very logical reasons why I like Tuck. One of them is that Tuck is one of the few schools that has a really strong focus on clean energy. There is the Rever Center of Energy. There is also the Irving Institute. Both of those centers I'm highly interested in. They're doing a lot of great work. I've also spoken to a lot of the alumni, and that's kind of where the software aspect comes in. I found that the Tuck
Sure.
community is extremely welcoming. Most alums I've spoken to have gone out of their way to help me. And as someone who enjoys being around people, that's a community I really want to be a part of, and that's a community I feel I can contribute to as well. And lastly, again on the software side, Tuck has the mission to better the world through business, and I think I think that's something I relate to.
Cool. Okay, so I think overall good answer. I think definitely shows some of the research that you have done and shows clarity on your long-term goal. I think I would urge you to add two things. Number one is, first of all, there are three elements. Like, this is where your long-term goal is. Cool. And these are the gaps today. These two things you mentioned really well. Tuck plays a part in getting there, but the other thing that also plays a part in getting there is your short-term goal. So I think I didn't see that, or maybe you talked about it, maybe I missed it. So generally, the big idea is talk about the problem that you, and I sort of, I didn't make it easy for you because I asked you why MBA and why Tuck in the same question. And that's annoying because why MBA can be a big answer in itself, and then why Tuck can be a pretty big answer in itself. So I sort of wanted you to to be put on the spot. So what I would recommend is keep the problem at the beginning, like you did. I think that's fantastic, and you'd be surprised with how many people I have to tell that like frame your long-term vision as a big problem that you're trying to solve. So I think you did that. So that was a job well done. And then you talked about the gap that you have today. So then tell me a little bit more about what you want to do instead that would fill that gap. And then Tuck would automatically come in like, okay, you know what? To get there, I need to go to Tuck. I think that would fill in both your YMBA and YTuck experience. So that was my feedback for the YMBA thing. The second thing for Tuck, I felt that okay, so you talked about energy, and then you moved to the community and the helpfulness of people, and I think those are good things. I think Tuck is known for like a really helpful alumni. It's also probably one of the most cult-like schools where people really like there. I don't know why, because Tuck is in the middle of nowhere. It's very cold. There's nothing to do. So, but people seem to love it, right? So I do think you hit that. What I didn't see coming from the Tuck answer was structure. So what I would recommend is sandwich your answer at the beginning. So talk about, okay, and Tuck especially because of A, B, and C. And your A can be, Tuck's focus towards clean energy. B could be, some of the professional or academic stuff that you want to do. And C could be the community. So tell me that right out of the bat so that I can follow your answer better. So you can say that I want to go to Tuck because of Tuck's commitment to clean energy, because of the professional and academic opportunities that I can have, and finally the community. So let's talk about the energy element first. So blah, blah, blah. Then also, I really was inspired by, like this class or this elective, and also these, like Tuck Go is a big thing. The first year project is a big thing. Then there is, community consulting. And you can talk about how you can pick like a energy project in community consulting, or like a clean tech project in on-site consulting, or like maybe a development sector energy problem in your first year project and stuff like that. So that would then let me know that you have clearly done your research in what Tuck has to offer, and you're not solely relying on the softer culture elements to YTuck. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Thank you. Got it.
Cool. So, all right. So let's jump into some of the more experience-related questions. So, can you tell me about a time when you had to stand up to someone that you work with, and to tell me more about that disagreement? Why did that happen, and what was the outcome?
It's a good question. Let me think about this. Okay, so very early on, I was a young employee in the company, and I was given a very interesting opportunity. There was a neglected project that I was given the opportunity to oversee. It was neglected because the person who was taking charge of it had left the company, and there was a lack of ownership essentially. So taking on the project, I figured, this is a chance for me to make my mark within the company, earn some internal credibility. But as I got deeper with the problem, I realized that we had more than the supply chain issue that had initially delayed the project before I joined it. There was also an uncooperative site manager at one of our solar sites that was holding up timelines, making it harder for our vendors to work, and just generally actually being quite rude to them and also to me. And this was one of those times where my age was a bit of an issue because I was a young employee. This was a 40-year-old man we're talking about. This is a person who's spent like 10 years in the industry. So it was kind of hard. This was a very interesting challenge for me. I was initially, advised to raise it to business unit heads, but I figured that this is something I want to deal with on my own. So, I decided to fly down to the site. I had honest conversations with this guy. I made it clear, that I had the best interests of the company at heart, and we were actually on the same team. We were working towards the same goal. And I kind of understood what his problems were. I realized he had a delayed promotion, so after, kind of quote unquote standing up to him, I realized that I needed to help him before he could help me. So I went back to, the headquarters and made a case for his promotion. He did come around, and our project did get on time. And he actually continues to be a close friend till today.
Okay, cool. Okay, I think this was a good answer. I think the disagreement came out well, and I think it sort of ended up being like a way that you could help him to sort of get what he needed. I think the piece where you discovered that one of the ways, one of the reasons for his general antagonism was because he wasn't promoted and he didn't really feel valued. So I would poke a little bit on that part of the experience. So I would try to talk a little bit more about how did you know that, right? Because you're a young employee, right? And people generally don't confide these things so early, right? So you clearly build rapport and you clearly build kinship with this person. So I would try to talk a little bit more about that, where you had to dig deep into his or her motivation, and what are some of the ways you sort of got to the root of the disagreement. And I think that will show some of the EQ elements of your personality, show empathy. And I think that was a missed opportunity. You jumped in that real quick. I think maybe you're trying to keep your answer short, but I think more details around that experience would only offer some really good color to your answer.
Makes sense. Thanks for that. Take note of that.
Cool. Can you tell me about the time when you had to quickly adapt to a rapidly changing situation?
Yep. All right. So a couple of months ago, my firm, which is a large clean tech developer in India, we acquired a small digital analytics firm. The idea was that their technology would be able to help improve the efficiencies of our solar and wind assets. And I was working very closely with the person who had kind of led this acquisition, and I was very lucky to see it up close. But what happened was that this individual that I was working with, he got an admit to a business school, and he decided to pull the trigger early and quit the company much earlier than he had originally planned. And the situation changed rapidly because without the kind of the original driver who led the acquisition, people decided to shake their hands off the acquisition. I had a team of close to 40 people who we just trying to integrate within our company, and they had nowhere to go. They had no one to answer to. And I realized that this was I had to step up, and I volunteered. I raised my hand and I told my boss that let me work on this project. Let me make sure that these guys are integrated well. And what I did over the next 2 to 3 months was essentially I scheduled a bunch of meetings, an insane amount of stakeholder meetings, where I sat down with the acquired company, where business owners within my own firm, and we decided on non-negotiables, what was the common ground, and we figured out a way for this smaller team to integrate within our larger firm. And we were able to close the integration actually early this morning. So it's pretty close to home, this one. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think there was a good problem. I don't think you talked enough about what you did. So right now, tell me if I'm wrong, but the only thing that came up as something that you did was scheduling meetings, which is fine. I think sometimes people need to do that. Like when conversations do not happen, somebody has to step up and try to make sure that those conversations happen. But you need to give me a little bit more context here. Like number one, if scheduling meeting was the only thing that was needed to make this integration a success, then why wasn't someone doing it? I'm pretty sure it was more than that. Second, I think you can maybe delve a little bit deeper into the problem where you can talk about, like, look, I mean, the main problem with the integration is because the person who was in charge of this left, there was nobody that these people would be able to, get their information from, or get to know the company culture and all of that stuff. But also, more importantly, nobody in our company really didn't know these people or know their motivations, right? So, that would, I think, help you to step into this, this M&A lead kind of a role, who not only set up meetings but also individually talked to these people, figured out their motivation, figured out what they enjoyed doing before, what were the kind of projects they were most interested in, and then maybe also took a part in staffing them. I think one big issue when people come on board is if there is no, like, supervisor, then there's like this vacuum. People don't know what they're supposed to do. An onboarding plan for new people is immensely helpful, right? So maybe you can talk about, so I did three things to solve the problem. I made sure that, like, we talk to each other. So I set up meetings with all the important stakeholders, both from the company that we acquired, but also our teams who would work with them on the day-to-day. B, in order to make their onboarding more seamless, I created an onboarding plan that would then help them to, to sort of have a knowledge base on where different things sit in our company, what were some of the regular cadence. So basically, you are the housekeeper, right? And that also tells your interviewer that you're not afraid to do work that seems like brunt, right? And then C, maybe you can talk about, like, I also became friends with them. I think it's important for you to welcome your coworkers, especially when they're new. So we would, like, hang out every Friday. We would get to know them, get to know what they wanted to do better, get to know what frustrated them, so that we offered them a welcoming environment for them to thrive. So I think those three things, again, I'm just making it up, right? Like, I don't know what you did. But those three things would make the answer a little bit more than someone who just scheduled meetings. Does that help?
It does. I really sold myself short on that one, but yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, I think you did too, and I think you would be better off talking about. Look, I mean, also, like, fully understand that business school is also a lot about exaggerating your accomplishments, but I guess, like, you have to do what you have to do, right? Cool.
Yep.
So, all right, next question. Can you tell me about a time when you disagreed with someone, and tell me more about what was at stake, and tell me a little bit about what was the outcome?
That's a good question. Okay, so one of the projects that I led at my current firm was the product development of a new technology that would let us deploy solar panels on water bodies. This was interesting not only because it's a novel technology, but because my firm is a clean energy developer. It's not really a product company. It coordinates efforts of suppliers and vendors and makes sure these projects happen. We're not into developing products. So, there was a lack of consensus, on how things get done with respect to product development. And, taking on this role, I was actually quite excited on building a culture of innovation and, R&D within the firm. So I was coordinating the efforts of, this aerospace engineering firm that was helping us design the product. I was coordinating efforts of this manufacturing vendor. And we also had our engineering team on board, which was, kind of overlooking this entire process. And what would happen often was that because we had three, people who were technically very sound, they would often disagree with each other. And this was layered. This was, kind of made worse by the fact that they also had a business team to, kind of get on the same page. And they would often, fight with each other. And what ended up happening was, because that we had a very tech-heavy side, these folks started becoming very, very interested in making the product as superior as possible and beat all industry standards. But what that would have done was it would have made the product extremely expensive. It would have kind of, defeated the purpose of developing the product in the first place. So what I had to do was I had to disagree with these folks and, really stand up to them and tell them, hey, look, that really build common consensus on, why are we doing this project in the first place? Why are we building this product in the first place? And it involved me, disagreeing with them, letting them know that, this is not something we can do. And I had to be the bad guy, so to speak, and give them the bad news whenever, they were pushing the budgets too far, or they were asking for, things that were unreasonable. Yeah. So it worked out. We are currently in the process of patenting this product and manufacturing it at scale soon.
Okay, cool. So I think overall, good context. I think definitely a good problem. I think it doesn't answer the question effectively, because I think the question was more, I think this is a better answer to a question where you were a mediator, or for example, can you tell me about a time when you dealt with a conflict, right? This one felt like there were two opposing factions who were not agreeing with each other, and you came in and helped to see this project through, right?
Yeah.
I don't think you personally disagreed with something. I think you clearly talked about, like, I disagreed with making this product perfect, and which would, increase our budgets, increase the time. But I didn't see you disagreeing with the principle. Did I miss that? What do you do? What do you think?
No. I think you're right. I think I did not really express my opinion, or where I stood as clearly as I should have, and perhaps there's a better example of disagreement that I should be thinking of.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can make this work though. I think you can talk a little bit more about, like, look, we were building this product and we were working on a very tight deadline. However, and you can maybe give me more context, like who were working, maybe engineers, product managers, whatever. And you can tell me a little bit more about, one of the reasons that I disagreed with is spending too much time and money on making the product perfect, which would delay our launch. I think that's a very common disagreement that product managers. I'm a product manager for a company, and we have this stuff all the time, and and perfection is such a cancerous thing in like products, because you can perfect products forever, right? Like you have to launch at some point. So I think that can be a good disagreement thing. So then you can cut down on the beginning stuff where people were at odds with each other. It was more about you disagreeing with the launch plan. You can also show some empathy, like, okay, let's talk about the specifications that we promised to our customers, or that we promised to our clients, and make sure we hit that as our baseline. And once we hit that, we're ready to ship. So I think that could be a good disagreement. And you can save the other example of different teams conflicting with each other is if your interviewer asks you, tell me about a time when you had to resolve the conflict. I think that will be a good answer to that question. Does that make sense?
It does. Got it.
Cool. So I'm just checking time. Okay, let me ask you one more question. Can you tell me about a time when you had to earn trust from your team or from somebody outside your team? How did you do that? And like, tell me a little bit more about that experience.
Okay, I'm actually going to go back to an old story, but it's kind of close to my heart. So when I founded the social entrepreneurship club on campus, I was a physics student, and what I thought that we would do with this club was we would find communities and help them scale up and start businesses, so that they had meaningful sources of income. But this involved setting up businesses. This is something I just didn't know how to do, and I made sure that we recruited a bunch of finance, economics, and business majors to get that input and perspective into our club. And what ended up happening was that because I was leading them, they didn't actually trust me or respect me for that matter, because they were like, who is this kid? He's just this physics undergrad who's trying to like tell us how to start a business. He shouldn't be making the calls anyway. And I was disheartened at first. I was kind of like knocked back, but upon reflecting, I realized that they had a point. I didn't know how to start a business, and what I did essentially was I scheduled like one-on-one chats with all my team members, and try to really understand what their perspective on this entire situation was and get their strategic input on how we could set up these businesses. And I made it clear that, hey, look, I'm not the expert here. In fact, you are. And I made sure that they know that they are very much in charge of, giving me the right input. The only thing I would do is make sure that we came up with the best fit answer, and I would be the router, and I would be the mediator in this situation. So by kind of empowering them and letting them know that they had a lot of say in decision making, I believe I was able to win their trust. And over time, through these conversations, I picked up a few things on my own, and I had ideas, and I think those ideas were not so bad either. So I think over time I was able to win their trust over. We did some good work.
Cool. I think good answer. I think this is, and also like I don't think you are you're doing yourself a disservice by talking about a college answer. I think one of them is totally fine. I think what I missed in this answer is like a clear structure of why they didn't trust you. I think at this point, it sounds like they only did not trust you because of your non-business background, which you also acknowledge that, yeah, I mean, fair enough, right? I don't have a business background. But I think what would help here is to talk about, how you were able to earn their trust. Right now, it seems like you were able to earn trust by just because you let them take the lead or you agreed with them. So I would maybe break it down into like, okay, so I did A, B, and C. So a lot of your good interviewing is just following structures. So, okay, so in order to earn trust, I wanted to make sure that A, I let them take the lead because they are the experts and I'm learning. B, I offer value in these specific areas. So maybe you did research on the communities that you wanted to work in, or maybe you had formed business plans. Like that's where your input came in. And C, maybe you can talk about, and this is like super, super helpful, where you sort of, did some of the work that they did not want to do. Like, for example, maybe they did not want to do the due diligence element of starting businesses, or maybe they did not want to work on figuring out, what the initial investments would be, and you help them in quantitative modeling or financial modeling and some of that stuff, so that they could rely on you on things that they did not want to do, and you were always known as, like Mr. Dependable, right? And that way you could earn their trust because you were doing their work for them, but also you were also building credibility within their own team. That makes sense?
Got it. That's actually really, really important. I'll do that. Yeah.
Cool. So I think those were most of my questions. So Karthik, over. So I'm going to pretend to be a Tuck alumni here. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah. I think the one thing I'd like to focus on is, I've spoken to a lot of Tuck alums, and I understand that, there's a host of experiences on campus precisely because of the way the campus is structured. Is there anything that you in particular wish that you'd done that you missed out on? I just want to make sure that, I document all the things that are the highlights of people's experiences. So I'd love to know what you regret not doing in your time.
Yeah. So I regret not going to Michigan. I'm kidding. So okay, okay, let's just pretend I answered the question. Do you have any other question for me?
I'm good, actually. This is something I struggle with. This question is not my. I love your input on what are the questions that we can ask interviewers.
That makes sense. Okay, so the main idea is for interviewers to talk about themselves. Like people love talking about themselves. So I think your main job here is to get them to start yapping, right? I think one of the ways to do that is, I don't know if you will know who your interviewer is, stalk them on LinkedIn and tell them that, and I think it might come up when they introduce themselves as well. So tell them that, okay, so I understand that from your pre-MBA, you were in, I don't know, consulting, and through your MBA, you moved to tech. Can you tell me how you made that transition happen, right? So that's a question. Then you can talk about, can you tell me some of the character traits that make Tuckies, right? So how do Tuckies stand out from other business schools? or why did you pick Tuck, for example. You're also interviewing, right? Like, I mean, you're interviewing for them. They're also interviewing to be the school you go to. So I don't think it will hurt if you sell Tuck to me. I think that's perfectly fine. You can also, I think one other question that I used to ask a lot was, can you tell me some of the things that you were hoping would not happen in Tuck? I mean, I wouldn't ask it in this specific way, but I really like to know when people are honest about some of the experiences that they did not like in their business school. And I mean, I refuse to believe that everybody loves their business school at all times. That's just stupid. So I would frame the question in like, okay, can you tell me like the thing that you loved the most at Tuck and the thing that you could do without? So that would generally give me an idea of some of the things that they don't like, and I think that's fair. I think it's a fair question to ask. You can also ask about professional and extracurricular clubs that they were a part of. What were some of the most memorable experience that they had? So basically, you're getting them to talk about themselves, and as much as you do that, you're fine.
Sounds good.
But I would recommend having like 3 to 4 questions in your back pocket, because some interviewers can be like a giant pain in the ass and can constantly ask you, oh, do you have any more questions? Do you have any more questions? So you don't want to run out of questions to ask.
All right, I'll do that.
Okay, awesome. So I think, Karthik, I think you're in good shape. I think you need to maybe focus a little bit more on answering the question and offering some structure. But I have high hopes for you. Keep me posted on how things go. And thank you so much for coming here. Doing a mock interview live is never easy. So I'm pretty happy that you came up and you had the courage to go through this with other people watching. So thanks so much for being here. Please keep me posted on how things go with Tuck and all of your other schools. And yeah, let me know.
All right. Thanks, Souvik. Actually, I really appreciate you taking out the time as well. This was massively helpful for me as well. And I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Sounds good. Right. Thanks, Karthik. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.